Captain Junho Lee stared at the emergency beacon flashing red on his screen. The signal came from Meridian 7, a small human colony on the edge of Coalition space. His ship, the UES Retribution, was 3 hours away. Something felt wrong. Colonies did not send emergency signals unless something terrible happened. "Increase speed to maximum," Junho ordered. His crew moved quickly, their faces tight with worry. They had heard stories about pirates, but Meridian 7 was supposed to be safe. The treaty protected them. The Vex Dominion had signed papers 40 years ago, promising peace with humanity. When the Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Junho's heart stopped. Meridian 7 was burning. The colony's main city was a sea of flames. Bodies floated in space where evacuation shuttles had been destroyed. And circling above the planet like vultures were 3 Vex warships, their weapons still firing on anything that moved. "Captain, reading 12,000 dead," his sensor officer whispered. "They're targeting the escape pods." Junho's hands gripped his command chair. 12,000. Mothers, fathers, children. The treaty was supposed to protect them. The Vex had promised. The Galactic Coalition had guaranteed human safety. "Battle stations," Junho said quietly. His crew looked at him. They were one ship. The Vex had 3 warships, each larger than the Retribution. "I don't care about the odds. Those are our people down there." The Retribution charged forward, weapons blazing. Junho knew every trick human ships had learned during the First Contact War. He used the planet's gravity to slingshot around, hitting the nearest Vex ship from an unexpected angle. The Vex vessel's shields collapsed, and the Retribution's missiles tore into its hull, but the other 2 Vex ships turned toward them. Energy beams cut through space. The Retribution shook as impacts hammered its shields. Junho kept moving, kept firing, buying time. Every second meant another shuttle might escape. Another family might live. "Sir, our shields are at 20%, his tactical officer called out. "Keep firing," Junho said. He opened a channel to any surviving colonists. "This is Captain Lee. Get to the southern continent. We'll hold them here." The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Retribution was dying, but they had destroyed 1 Vex ship and damaged another. The 3rd Vex vessel suddenly pulled back and jumped away into faster-than-light travel. Junho did not understand why until his communications officer spoke. "Captain, we're receiving priority messages from Earth. Meridian 7 wasn't the only attack." The young woman's voice shook. "Sir, 17 human colonies were hit at the same time. All by the Vex. All within the last 6 hours." Junho sat down slowly. 17 colonies. Tens of thousands dead. This was not a raid. This was not an accident. This was planned extermination. "Get me Admiral Hannah Choi," he said. Hours later, the news reached Earth. Admiral Hannah Choi stood in the War Council chambers, watching reports flood in from across human space. Colony after colony. Attack after attack. The Vex had broken the treaty in the most brutal way possible. "They knew," said Ambassador Taiyang Park, Earth's representative to the Galactic Coalition. He had just returned from Coalition headquarters, his face pale with rage. The Coalition knew the Vex were building fleets. They did nothing. When I demanded action, they told me to show restraint. Restraint. While our children burn. Hannah watched the footage from Meridian 7. She had been an admiral for 20 years. She had seen war before. But this was different. This was not war. This was murder. What did the Coalition say officially? She asked. Taiyang's laugh was bitter. They called for dialogue. They said both sides should avoid escalation. They suggested a fact-finding mission that would take 6 months to organize. He slammed his hand on the table. They're treating this like a border dispute, not genocide. Hannah looked at the other council members. She saw the same anger in their eyes, the same cold fury. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition 40 years ago, after a brutal first contact war with the Vex. The war had ended in a stalemate, and both sides signed the Treaty of Kepler Station. Humanity had followed every rule. They had reduced their fleets. They had opened their borders to coalition inspectors. They had played by the rules, and the rules meant nothing. "Contact Prime Minister Sumin Bey," Hannah said quietly. "Tell her to convene the full War Council. All branches, all departments." She looked at the star map showing human colonies, so many now marked with red icons indicating attacks. "If the treaty means nothing to them, then we'll write new terms. Final terms. Across human space, the news spread. In every city, on every station, on every ship, humans watched the footage. They saw their people dying. They saw evacuation shuttles full of children blown apart. They saw the Vex ships firing on hospitals and schools, and they remembered why the first contact war had terrified the galaxy. Not because humans had better ships, not because they had superior technology, but because when pushed to the edge, when their families were threatened, humans did not surrender. They did not negotiate. They fought with a fury that made other species whisper warnings to their young. The Vex Dominion was about to remember that lesson. Captain Junho sat in his damaged ship, watching rescue crews pull survivors from Meridian 7, 2,000 survivors from 12,000 colonists. He thought about his orders to show restraint. He thought about the treaty. He thought about the rules. Then he thought about the empty playgrounds down on the planet, the schools that would never open again, the families torn apart. "Helmsman," he said, "plot a course for Earth. Best speed." "Sir?" his helmsman asked. "What about repairs?" Junho's eyes were hard. "We're going to need bigger ships soon. Much bigger ships." The War Council met in the underground bunkers beneath Geneva. Prime Minister Sumin Bey stood at the head of the table, looking at the faces of Earth's military leadership. Admiral Hannah Choi sat to her right. General Dong Kang, commander of all ground forces, sat across from her. Dr. Minji Yoon, head of defense research, had charts and data displays ready. Ambassador Taiyang Park looked like he had not slept in days. "The Galactic Coalition has issued a statement," Taiyang said, his voice dripping with disgust. "They urge both sides to pursue diplomatic solutions. They've offered to mediate talks between us and the Vex Dominion." "Both sides?" General Do-hyun's voice was like grinding stones. "We didn't attack anyone. We followed their damn treaty. Our colonies are ash, and they want us to talk?" Sumin raised her hand for silence. "What else did they say?" "They warned us against disproportionate response," Taiyang continued. "Several coalition species have filed concerns that humanity might overreact. The Trell ambassador specifically mentioned that our military expansion violates treaty limitations." Hannah laughed, a sound without humor. "We've been reducing our fleets for 40 years, following every inspection, every limitation. And they're worried we might overreact?" Lieutenant Yunishin entered the room, carrying a data chip. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best intelligence officer Earth had. Her hand shook slightly as she loaded the information onto the main display. "Prime Minister, you need to see this," Yuna said. "We hacked Vex military communications. We also accessed coalition intelligence databases." She brought up files, construction records, communications intercepts. "The Vex have been building this fleet for 8 years. 3,000 warships, all constructed in secret shipyards." The room went silent. 8 years? Suim said slowly. "The coalition knew?" "Yes, ma'am." Yuna pulled up more files. "Coalition intelligence detected the construction 4 years ago. They classified it as an internal Vex matter. They never warned us. She paused. It gets worse. We found communications between Vex leadership and 3 coalition species. They were encouraging the Vex, quietly supporting them. Why? Hana demanded. Why would the coalition species support genocide against us? Yuna brought up another file. It was a classified coalition security assessment, marked with the highest level of secrecy. Because they're afraid of us, Admiral. This document is from the Coalition Security Directorate. It recommends limiting human expansion because, and I quote, humanity has demonstrated disproportionate military effectiveness relative to their technological level and refuses to accept defeat even in unwinnable scenarios. The room was quiet. Everyone understood now. The Coalition had not protected humanity. They had sacrificed humanity to protect themselves from a species they feared. They fear us because we won the first contact war, General Do-hyun said quietly. We had older ships, smaller fleets, and we still fought the Vex to a standstill. We didn't just fight them, Hana added. We terrified them. We used tactics they never expected. We refused every surrender demand. We made them pay for every meter of space. She looked at Sumin. The Coalition decided we were the bigger threat. So they let the Vex attack us, hoping we'd be weakened or destroyed. Sumin stood and walked to the window. Outside, Geneva looked peaceful. But she knew that across human space, families were burying their dead. Children were asking where their parents were. Entire communities were gone. Dr. Minji, Sumin said, tell me about Project Nightfall. The scientist stood up. Prime Minister, Project Nightfall is a networked combat system. It connects all human ships through quantum-encrypted channels. Advanced AI assists with targeting, coordination, and tactical decisions. 100 ships can fight like a single organism. The Coalition banned AI-assisted warfare, Taiyang said. If we use it, the Coalition banned it to limit our effectiveness, Minji interrupted. Every species knows humans are better at warfare than them. They wrote rules to stop us from being too good at it. Well, we broke their rules in secret. We have 800 ships equipped with Nightfall systems built in hidden facilities in the asteroid belt. 800 ships. It was a fraction of the Vex fleet. But with Nightfall, what are our chances? Sumin asked. If we activate Nightfall? Minji smiled coldly. Ma'am, we won't just defeat them. We'll destroy them so completely that the galaxy will remember it for 1,000 years. Sumin turned to face the council. Here's what we know. The treaty meant nothing to the Vex. The Coalition knew and did nothing. They sacrificed our people because they feared our potential. She placed her hands on the table. So I'm asking you all, what should we do? Annihilate them, General Do-hyun said immediately. Complete military destruction of the Vex Dominion. Agreed, said Hana. But not just military targets. We hit their shipyards, their industrial centers, their military academies. We make sure they can never threaten anyone again. And the Coalition? Taiyang asked. Summon smiled, and it was not a kind smile. We withdraw from the Galactic Coalition immediately. We recall every ambassador, every civilian, every human from Coalition space. And we issue an ultimatum to the Vex, 72 hours to withdraw from all human territory and pay reparations. If they refuse, she looked at Dr. Minji. We show them what final terms really mean. The vote was unanimous. Earth would respond, and it would be overwhelming. The ultimatum went out on all channels. The Vex Dominion received the message in their capital city. Their high command read it and laughed. Humanity demanded complete withdrawal? Reparations? Or else what? They were one species. The Vex had 3,000 warships, and the Coalition's quiet support. They sent back a simple message. We reject your terms. Earth will burn next. In Geneva, Sumin read the Vex response. She looked at her council. 72 hours, she said. In 72 hours, we remind the galaxy why they fear us. Activate Project Nightfall. Recall the Shadow Fleet and send a message to all human colonies. Stay strong. We're coming. Across human space, ships began to move. Secret shipyards came online. Hidden fleets powered up their engines. And on Earth, in 1,000 military bases, soldiers prepared for war. The Vex had broken the treaty. They would learn that humanity's response would be written in fire and steel, and the terms would be final. The 72 hours ended at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. Across the galaxy, Coalition observers watched their screens, waiting to see what humanity would do. Most expected angry words, maybe a few military strikes. Some hoped the humans would learn their place. A few species quietly prayed that humanity would show mercy. They were all wrong. At midnight, every human diplomatic channel went silent. Every embassy locked its doors. Every ambassador boarded ships and left Coalition space without a word. Human civilians packed up and departed from alien worlds. In the span of 6 hours, humanity simply vanished from the Galactic Coalition. On the Coalition Council station, the Trell ambassador tried to call Earth. No response. He tried to reach human colonies. Nothing. It was as if humanity had disappeared. What are they doing? He asked his aide. I don't know, sir, the aide replied. But our military analysts say this is unusual. They're pulling back everything. Ships, people, resources. They're going dark. The Vex Dominion noticed too, but they saw it as weakness. Their high command gathered in their war room, planning the final assault on Earth itself. 3,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled. They would strike at humanity's heart, destroy their homeworld, and end this annoying species forever. All fleets to Earth, the Vex Supreme Commander ordered. We will burn their cities and scatter their ashes. The Coalition will thank us for removing this threat. The Vex Armada began moving toward the solar system. It was a journey that would take 4 days at faster-than-light speeds. Coalition observers followed at a distance, some curious, others concerned. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the overwhelming Vex force reached Earth. On the 4th day, the Vex fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They expected to see human defense fleets, orbital stations, maybe last-minute evacuations. Instead, they found silence. Earth's orbital defenses were dark. The shipyards were empty. Luna Base had no power signature. Mars colonies were abandoned. It was like humanity had simply given up and fled. Scan for human ships, the Vex commander ordered. They must be hiding. The scans found nothing. No human fleet. No defense platforms. Nothing. They ran, one Vex officer said with satisfaction. They knew they couldn't win. Forward, the commander ordered. Take position around Earth. We'll bombard from orbit. The 3,000 Vex warships moved deeper into the solar system, passing Mars. Approaching Earth. They were spread out in standard formation, confident, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. That was when Commander Hyunwoo Nam sprang the trap. 800 human ships dropped out of stealth mode. They had been hiding in the asteroid belt, in the shadows of moons, using technology the Coalition didn't know humanity possessed. And they weren't scattered. Thanks to Project Nightfall, they moved as one mind, one purpose. The Vex fleet was surrounded. All ships, Hyunwoo said calmly. Execute final terms protocol. No survivors. Project Nightfall activated across the human fleet. Every ship's weapons, sensors, and engines synchronized. The AI systems calculated firing solutions that no single human crew could manage. 800 ships became one perfect killing machine. The Vex tried to respond. They had superior numbers, better shields, stronger weapons. On paper, they should have won easily. But the human ships moved like water, like a school of fish, each one knowing where the others would be. They concentrated fire on single targets, destroying shields and hulls in seconds. Then moved to the next target before the Vex could return fire. Captain Jisoo Han piloted the experimental warship Final Word, the most advanced ship in the human fleet. Her vessel was small, fast, and equipped with weapons that bent the rules of physics. She led strike teams into the heart of the Vex formation, her ship dancing between enemy vessels like a knife between ribs. "Target their command ship," Hyunwoo ordered. "Remove their coordination." Jisoo smiled. "Understood, Commander." This is for Meridian 7. The Final Word accelerated to speeds that would have torn apart most ships. Its experimental drive left a trail of bent space-time. Vex weapons tried to track it, but Jisoo was already somewhere else. She fired missile barrages that split into hundreds of smaller warheads. She used energy weapons that punched through shields like they weren't there. The Vex command ship died in fire. Its commander still trying to understand how 800 ships were destroying 3,000 on Earth. Technician Soo-min Oh monitored Project Nightfall from the control center. His screens showed the battle in real time. Every human ship, every weapon, every target. The AI system suggested tactics, and human commanders approved or modified them in microseconds. It was beautiful and terrible. "How long until Vex fleet is neutralized?" Admiral Hannah asked. She had come to the control center to watch. "At current rate, 18 hours, Soo-min replied. But Commander Hyunwoo is accelerating the timeline. He's angry. They all were. Every human in the fleet remembered Meridian 7, remembered the 17 colonies, remembered children burning in evacuation shuttles. But the battle at Earth was only part of the plan. While the Vex fleet died in the solar system, other human forces struck across the galaxy. Every major Vex world found human ships in orbit. Every Vex shipyard exploded. Every military base was hit by precision strikes. The Shadow Fleet, humanity's secret armada built over 20 years in violation of coalition treaties, attacked everywhere at once. The Vex Dominion had 3,000 ships at Earth. They had another 2,000 spread across their territory. But those ships were scattered, separated, and they faced human forces that knew exactly where they were and how to kill them. On the Coalition Council Station, alarms blared. The observers watched in horror as the Vex military simply ceased to exist. In less than a day, a galactic power was being erased. "Stop them!" The Trell ambassador screamed. "Send peacekeeping forces." But who would go? Who would face the humans now? They watched the battlefeeds. They saw how human ships moved. They saw the cold efficiency. They realized that humanity had been holding back for 40 years. Playing by rules. Limiting themselves. Not anymore. 18 hours after the battle began, the last Vex warship exploded. 3,000 ships reduced to debris. The Vex Dominion's military was gone. But the human fleet wasn't finished. "All ships," Admiral Hannah broadcast. "Proceed to Phase 2. Occupy all Vex worlds. General Do-hyun, begin landing operations." The invasion of the Vex Dominion had begun, and the galaxy watched in terrified silence. The Vex homeworld had never been invaded. For 600 years, it had been the center of an empire. Now, human ships filled its skies. General Do-hyun Kang stood on the bridge of the troop carrier Hammer of Justice, watching his forces deploy. 50,000 soldiers in powered armor, supported by combat drones and orbital strike capability. The Vex ground forces had maybe 200,000 defenders. On paper, the Vex had the advantage. On paper meant nothing against humans who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. All units, this is General Dohying, he broadcast. You know your targets. Military installations only. Civilian areas are off limits unless fired upon. We are not the Vex. We do not murder children. He paused. But make no mistake. We are here to end their ability to wage war. Forever. Execute. The invasion began. Human forces struck with surgical precision. They disabled power plants that fed military bases. They destroyed weapons factories. They captured command centers. And whenever Vex forces tried to resist, the humans demonstrated why coalition species had written treaties to limit human military effectiveness. Human soldiers could fight for days without rest. Their powered armor providing food, water, and medical care. Their weapons could punch through Vex fortifications. Their tactical coordination, enhanced by Project Nightfall's ground combat version, meant that every human squad knew where every other squad was. They fought like parts of one enormous machine. Within 12 hours, the Vex homeworld was under occupation. The Vex High Command surrendered to avoid complete destruction. But surrender was not the end. Captain Jisoo Han had moved to the next phase of the plan. Her ship, the Final Word, led strike groups across Vex space. They targeted everything that could build, repair, or support warships. Shipyards exploded. Industrial centers burned. Military academies were reduced to rubble. Captain, we've located the Vex Military Archive, her tactical officer reported. It contains 600 years of military knowledge, tactics, and technology. Destroy it, Jisoo said without hesitation. All of it. Sir, that's their entire military history. Yes, Jisoo said coldly. And when we're done, they won't have a military future either. The archive burned. Across Vex space, every military installation, every weapons research facility, every training ground was systematically destroyed. Not damaged. Not disabled. Destroyed. Humanity was making sure the Vex could never threaten anyone again. On Earth, Admiral Hana prepared the broadcast that would change the galaxy. She stood in front of cameras, knowing every species in the coalition would see this. Behind her, screens showed human forces occupying Vex worlds. She began to speak. People of the Galactic Coalition. This is Admiral Hannah Choi of the United Earth Forces. 40 years ago, humanity joined your coalition in good faith. We signed the Treaty of Kepler Station. We followed your rules. We reduced our fleets. We opened our borders to your inspectors. We believed in your promise of protection. She paused, letting that sink in. The Vex Dominion attacked 17 human colonies. They murdered 50,000 civilians. They destroyed evacuation shuttles filled with children. And your coalition called for dialogue. You urged restraint. Some of you quietly supported them because you feared humanity more than you valued human lives. Hana's voice grew hard. You were right to fear us. Today, the Vex Dominion's military no longer exists. Their 3,000 warships are debris. Their homeworld is under our occupation. Their capacity to wage war has been permanently removed. And we are issuing new terms. Final terms. She pulled up a document on screen. First, the Vex Dominion is dissolved. Their territory will be administered by human forces until a new government, one that respects life, can be established. Second, any coalition species that assisted the Vex in any way will face immediate economic quarantine. We have the evidence. Third, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Coalition effective immediately. We will establish our own alliances with species who value honor over politics. Hana leaned closer to the camera. Let me be very clear. We did not want this. We wanted peace. We wanted to be part of your galaxy. But you taught us a lesson. Treaties mean nothing without the power to enforce them. The Vex learned that lesson in fire. We hope you learn it more peacefully. She ended the broadcast. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. The Coalition Council met an emergency session. Species that had supported the Vex tried to deny it, but Lieutenant Yuna had released all the evidence. Communications between Vex leadership and Coalition members. Financial transfers. Weapons shipments. It was all there. Panic spread. Some species began mobilizing their fleets, fearing they were next on humanity's list. Others rushed to send diplomatic messages, swearing they had nothing to do with the Vex attacks. Ambassador Taiyang Park, who had resigned from his coalition position, watched the chaos with grim satisfaction. He opened a secure channel to Earth. Prime Minister Sumin were receiving contact requests from 43 species. They want to negotiate. What are they offering? Sumin asked. Everything, Taiyang replied. Trade agreements, technology sharing, military alliances. Ma'am, at least 15 species are asking to leave the coalition and join whatever organization we create. Sumin smiled slightly. Interesting. What about the species that helped the Vex? Scrambling. The Trell ambassador actually sent a formal apology and offered to pay reparations to the attacked colonies. Not enough, Sumin said. Make a list of demands. Full economic sanctions for 5 years. Public acknowledgement of their role. And they fund the rebuilding of every colony the Vex destroyed. Back on the Vex homeworld, General Nohyun met with the surviving Vex civilian leadership. They were terrified, expecting genocide. Instead, Dahyun presented them with a document. This is the new government structure. Democratic, multi-party, with human oversight for 10 years. You will disarm completely. Your economy will shift from military production to civilian infrastructure. You will teach your children that aggression leads to destruction. And if we refuse? A Vex elder asked. Dohyun looked at him coldly. You saw what we did to your military in 18 hours. We can do the same to your entire civilization. We choose not to because we are not monsters. But understand this, you exist now because we allow it. That can change. The Vex elder signed the document with shaking hands. Across human space, the news spread. The colonies that had been attacked received word. The Vex were broken. The threat was gone. Humanity had responded with overwhelming force, and the galaxy would never forget it. In the ruins of Meridian 7, survivors gathered around screens to watch Admiral Hana's broadcast. They saw the Vex homeworld occupied. They saw justice, finally delivered. A young girl, who had lost her parents in the attack, looked up at the stars. Are we safe now? Her guardian, a survivor who had fought the Vex ground forces, nodded. Yes, little one. We're safe. And the whole galaxy knows that if anyone threatens us again, they'll face final terms. 15 years had passed since the Vex War. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. Admiral Junho Lee, promoted from captain after his defense of Meridian 7, stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital station. Below him, the planet looked peaceful. But Junho knew that peace had come at a price. The galaxy now feared humanity, and fear kept the peace better than any treaty. Admiral, the delegation from New Vex has arrived. His aide announced. JUNHO turned to see a group of young Vex civilians born after the war. They wore Earth-style clothing and carried datapads. Their leader, a female named Kara, bowed respectfully. Admiral Lee, thank you for meeting with us. We've completed the rebuilding of the education centers you requested. Junho nodded. Good. Remember, education is how you prevent the mistakes of the past. Your people tried to destroy us. We chose to rebuild you instead. Don't make us regret that choice. Kara's face was earnest. We won't, sir. Most of my generation is grateful. We learn what the old government did. We learn why it was wrong. We learned that humanity could have destroyed us, but chose mercy. After they left, Junho's aide spoke quietly. Do you think they really changed? Some have, Junho said. The younger ones especially. They grew up under our administration. They saw that we weren't the monsters their old leaders claimed. They saw that strength and mercy can coexist. He paused. But we keep the fleets ready just in case. Across the galaxy, the old Galactic Coalition had fractured. Too many species had lost faith in an organization that let genocide happen for political convenience. In its place, a new alliance had formed around humanity, the Coalition of Free Worlds. 37 species had joined, including some former Vex subjects who welcomed liberation. The new coalition had simple rules: honor agreements, defend each other, and any attack on one was an attack on all. Most importantly, humanity led the military command. No one objected. Everyone had seen what happened when you crossed the humans. Director Yuna Shin, head of Earth Intelligence, sat in her office reviewing reports. She was older now, her hair showing gray, but her mind was still sharp. A message came through from one of the coalition member species, the peaceful Kalari. Director Yuna, we've detected increased military activity from the Sarkith Empire. They're not part of our coalition. Should we be concerned? Yuna pulled up files on the Sarkith. They were aggressive, expansionist, and had been making threats toward Kalari border worlds. The old coalition would have called for talks, for committees, for months of debate. The new coalition worked differently. Increase our fleet presence near Kalari space, Yuna ordered. Make sure the Sarkith see our ships. If they ask why, tell them we're conducting exercises. They'll understand the message. The Sarkith understood. Within a week, their aggressive posturing stopped. No shots fired. No lives lost. Just the presence of human ships, a reminder of what could happen. Prime Minister Sumin Bay, now in her third term, addressed the Coalition Council. The council chamber looked different from the old Galactic Coalition. Smaller, more focused. Species sat together based on mutual respect, not political maneuvering. Friends and allies, Sumin began. 15 years ago, humanity faced extinction. The old coalition failed us. You know what happened next. She looked around the room. But that's not the story I want to tell today. Today, I want to talk about what we've built together. She pulled up statistics. Trade between coalition species had increased 400%. Piracy had dropped to nearly zero. Conflicts between member species had stopped entirely. The Coalition of Free Worlds had brought actual peace, not just paperwork. We did this together, Sumin continued. Not because of threats, not because of fear, but because we all learned the same lesson. Real peace requires strength. Real alliances require trust. And real justice requires action. The council applauded. These species had seen both sides of humanity. They knew humans could be terrifyingly effective at war. But they also knew humans could be generous allies, helping rebuild, sharing technology, protecting the weak. On Meridian 7, now fully rebuilt, a memorial stood where the colony's main city had been destroyed. Junho visited it whenever his duties allowed. Names of the 12,000 dead were carved into black stone. Flowers always lay at its base, left by survivors and their children. A young boy approached Junho. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Are you really Admiral Lee? The boy asked. The one who fought the Vex ships? I am, Junho said. My teacher says you save people. That you fought even though you were outnumbered. Junho knelt down to the boy's level. I did what any human would do. Our people were in danger. We protect our own. The boy looked at the memorial. I was born after the attack. But my mom was here. She says the screaming was the worst part, that the Vex ships just kept firing. He looked back at Junho. She says humans made sure no one will ever do that again. That's right, Junho said gently. We made sure of it. Later that day, Junho received an urgent message. A new species had made first contact with Coalition space. They were aggressive, demanding, threatening military action if their terms weren't met. The message came with footage of their warships destroying a research station. Junho felt a familiar cold settle in his chest. He contacted Earth immediately. Prime Minister Sumin, we have a situation. Minutes later, the Coalition leadership assembled. They reviewed the new species' demands, their threats, their destruction of the research station. It was familiar. Too familiar. Recommendations? Sumin asked. General Do-hyun, now in his 70s, but still sharp, spoke first. Show them the footage. Which footage? A new council member asked. The Vex War, Do-hyun said. All of it. The battle at Earth, the occupation, everything. Then invite them to reconsider their approach. Sumin nodded. Approved. Lieutenant Quan, send them our final terms policy documentation. Make sure they understand what happens when species mistake our preference for peace as weakness. The message went out. The new species received a simple package. Footage of the Vex War. Data on how quickly the Vex military was destroyed. Images of the occupation. And a final note. The Galactic Coalition once wrote rules to limit humanity's military effectiveness. Those rules no longer apply. We suggest peaceful contact. We insist on respectful negotiation. The alternative is already documented above. 3 hours later, the aggressive species sent a new message. They apologized for the destroyed research station. They offered reparations. They requested peaceful trade negotiations. They never threatened anyone again. In her office, Sumin allowed herself a tired smile. This was the galaxy humanity had created. Not through conquest, not through endless war, but through one overwhelming demonstration of power followed by consistent, principled action. Species joined the coalition, not because they feared being destroyed, but because they saw that humans meant what they said. When humans promised protection, they delivered. When humans set rules, they enforced them. When humans said something was unacceptable, the galaxy listened. That night, Junho stood on Meridian 7, looking up at the stars. He thought about the 12,000 who died here. He thought about the 17 colonies attacked. He thought about the choice humanity made, to respond with such force that no one would ever doubt them again. Was it worth it? His aide asked, standing beside him. Being feared? Junho considered the question. We're not just feared. We're respected. The species in our coalition know we'll defend them. Pirates know to avoid our space. Aggressive empires think twice before starting wars. He looked at the memorial. These people died because a treaty meant nothing to those who broke it. We made sure that would never happen again. By writing final terms, the aide said. Yes, Junho agreed. Terms that no one would ever break. Because they saw what happened to those who did. He turned to leave. Humanity never wanted to be the galaxy's monsters. We wanted to be their friends. But when friendship wasn't enough, when treaties were just paper, we became something else. We became the ones who enforced the peace. Above them, the stars shone. In orbit, the Shadow Fleet maintained its silent watch. Project Nightfall systems stayed ready. The galaxy's strongest military stood guard, not because humans loved war, but because they loved peace enough to fight for it. And across the galaxy, in 1,000 languages, parents told their children the same story. Be kind. Be fair. Be honest. Because if you threaten the innocent, if you break your word, if you mistake mercy for weakness, You'll learn what humanity learned long ago. The treaty means nothing without the strength to enforce it. And when humanity speaks, the galaxy listens to their final terms.